Hello friends, and welcome to another WSIB Truth Matters with Joe Machado. I hope you're doing well today. So today I'm going to launch the first of a three-part series dealing with preparing for a hearing or appeal. This is something that I did quite often over the past 30 years. Actually, quite often would be an understatement. And so I had a particular way of doing things and how I prepared for an appeal or a hearing. And I wanted to share that with you because I think it's important information to have. Even if you have a representative, it's always good to have a second pair of eyes. Also, if you're getting ready for an appeal or if you're already at appeals and you're waiting for a hearing date, this may be helpful to you. There are many things that you have to consider when you're preparing for an appeal or a hearing. And there are the legalities, the procedural aspects of dealing with the WSIB appeal. And then there are the what I call the evidentiary aspects. And that basically is all of the information that you can use and the various tools to prepare for a hearing so that you can put your best foot forward. So the three-part series, the first one is I'm going to talk about the process and time limits. So what I mean by that is I'm going to talk about defining the issue under appeal, and this is something I covered in my last video. I'm going to talk about the WSIB Appeal Services Division practice procedures, and I'm going to talk about the Workplace Safety and Insurance Appeals Tribunal practice procedures, so that they are somewhat different, and that'll be good information for you to have, and also to know where to get it so that you can review it for yourself and make things a little easier for you. A week from now, it's going to be part 2 of this series, and the topic is going to be preparing the case. So the importance of a case audit and an action plan. I'm going to talk about evidence, tribunal jurisprudence, how to get similar cases to support your arguments, and also expert information, whether it be at a hearing, at an oral hearing, or in written or in writing. And then 2 weeks from now will be the final part of the series, and that'll be the actual hearing. So I'll kind of go through a mock hearing and how I handled a particular case. So I'll deal with the opening, testimony, and then closing. I also want to obviously caution you, I'm not going to be dealing with any specific case. So I don't want you to draw any conclusions that this is the only way to handle your appeal or to handle your case. There are many different ways, and I would only be able to give you a concrete opinion if I did a WSIB case audit or a Workplace Safety and Insurance Appeals Tribunal case audit of your case, which is a very in-depth review. And at that point, I can give you a written report as to what my thoughts are, how strong your case is, what I think you should obtain, and so on. So for today's purposes, it's just to give you a bit of an understanding as to how I went about preparing. So the first thing I always did when preparing for a case, not always, but I would say at least once a month, because I handle cases all the time, very regularly, is I like to check if there was any changes or any updates to the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board's Appeal Services Division's practice procedures. Anytime that there are changes, typically they would let representatives know, or any appellants involved in an appeal. But I always wanted to make sure, so there was no surprises. And same thing with the Workplace Safety and Insurance Appeals Tribunal. I would do a quick scan on their website to see if there were any changes to their practice directions and to see if there were any other resources that had been added that could help me in a particular appeal. So 2 good things to do. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, but it can save a lot of time in terms of preparing and ensuring that there are no surprises down the road. So after I did that, I also, the other thing I did was check to make sure that the issue under appeal was well defined, that it was in the intent to object form, that it was very clearly stated, so there's no surprises. And in the case of the tribunal, the notice of appeal form, which is your pretty much your application to start your appeal with the tribunal, and that's where the issue is defined. And generally that issue has to be consistent with the issue that was dealt with at the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board's Appeal Services Division. Otherwise, the likelihood is that the tribunal would not be able to deal with it if it was something different. So with respect to these practice procedures, they're very important, and I know that a lot of it can be very confusing, but I'm going to give you some information on it because I think that it's good to, you can have a look for yourself and inform yourself a little bit about what the process is. Even if you have a representative, it doesn't hurt for you to know what to expect in the various situations. And believe me, these practice procedures, they're there to be able to manage any eventuality that takes place either before the hearing or after the hearing or during the actual appeal process when there are procedural matters that are taking place. So it's in categories and there's very good descriptions. All the information I give you, I'm going to put the link down in the description of this video. So you can go on the tribunal website or the WSIB website, and by clicking each one of those topics, you're going to have a description of each one of them, and it'll be quite informative. So the first one that I'm going to put up is for the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board, the Appeal Services Division's Practice and Procedures. As you can see here, it's in a very extensive list. These are just the headings. When you actually go online and you click each one of them, it'll provide you with an explanation of each one of those procedures. And it has everything from access, getting a copy of your file, to the filing the intent to object form, how to file the intent to object form, the appeal readiness form, talks about appeal time limits. If you miss an appeal time limit, how you can address that. So as you can see, there's quite an exhaustive list, and each one of those can be very helpful. If you go down the list a little bit and you see oral hearing criteria list, that's an important one because the WSIB can do hearings in writing, or they can do a hearing in oral format, and they do have a criteria and a list of the ones that are handled both in oral hearing or in writing format. So that's good to know because it'll help you to understand how much time you have to prepare, how to go about preparing, and it's the format for submitting your position or arguing the case in a written hearing format is obviously different than how you're going to present it in an oral hearing. So understanding that difference is very important as well. Even if you have a representative, they should be able to then use that to guide you in terms of what information they need to get in order to proceed with your appeal and put your best foot forward. So the next list, this one here, it pertains to the Workplace Safety and Insurance Appeals Tribunal practice direction, and they do update it occasionally with new processes or changes. And so it's also good to know everything with respect to a hearing, and particularly at the tribunal, is very procedural in nature. And it's not like something's going to happen and you're not made aware of it, it's not like it's going to be a surprise. You're always going to know what the next step is and what you need to do to move ahead with your appeal. But this gives you a very broad list of topics that are procedural in nature and what's required of you or the appellants or respondent when dealing with an appeal. So as you know, an employer also has the right to participate at a hearing of an appeal that you've launched, and they may have a representative as well. They would be considered the respondent in the appeal, and when dealing with, for example, delivering documents, there's a very specific procedure as to how that's handled to make sure that all of the parties involved in the appeal are properly notified, again, so there are no surprises. And if it is a hearing that was launched by your employer, then you would be the respondent, but you also have certain rights, and you may decide that you would like to participate in the appeal as a respondent, and you have certain rights in terms of how information is delivered to you. So it's done in a way to ensure that it's fair, that all of the rules and every aspect of the appeal is above board, so that, again, there's no surprises. So this pretty much covers today's part. As you can see, it was quite short, but there's a lot of information that I've given you for you to check out that I think can be useful. And if you have questions about any of those items and you're in the actual process right now of a hearing or your appeal, then by all means, you can send me an email, and my email address is in the link in the description. And then just give me a description of what's going on, and I will communicate with you and hopefully address your concerns, and you'll be in a position to then move ahead. So there's a lot of information to consider. So I'm going to leave you with that. So as I indicated in the beginning, coming up next week, it's going to be a little bit more extensive. I'm going to talk about the actual preparation of the case, and the topics are going to be a case audit and action plan, dealing with strategy, evidence to put together the case, to put your best foot forward, and itemized actions to be taken and their timelines, because that will then be very part and parcel with the some of the appeals practice procedures that you saw in those lists, and it gives you an opportunity to then look at how much time you have to obtain certain information and to prepare certain things, so that by the time that the hearing comes around, you're prepared, you're good to go. So that's what we're going to cover next Wednesday. And so, as always, I'm going to leave you with Mr. Smiley's tip of the day. And it's right around dealing with this subject matter. And it's simple. If you don't think the medical information adequately supports your case, so the medical that you have now, and you know better than anyone what that is, discuss it with your doctor to see if there's anything else that can be done to strengthen your position. Because if you feel that there's a weakness there, chances are there probably is, and you owe it to yourself to make sure that you get that addressed so that you can move ahead with your appeal confidently, or you can take a step back and make sure that you have what you need to put your best foot forward at your appeal. All right, friends. So once again, my email is in the description if you have to ask me any questions about today's topic. I hope that this information was informative, and I look forward to next week's part 2 to talk about the more sort of nuts and bolts of actually preparing for a case. All right. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. I invite you to become a subscriber. It's free. All the information I provide in this channel is free. And to my subscribers, thank you for sharing my videos. It's helping me to build the channel. You know that my biggest goal is to reach out to every injured worker in the province and let them know that we can help. We at WSIBsettlements.com, that's my company, and I welcome you to visit my company. We provide support for injured workers to deal with any issue that you may be having with your claim. I've been doing this on a professional level for over 30 years, and we've settled in over $300 million for our clients, and we want to continue to do much more than that. Okay, as always, my friends, and until the next one.